now. All right. Okay, class. We've got another interview. This will be our third interview that we have in the class. You all have already heard from Kelly Head and Steve Kramer. Today, we are going to have actually one of my former students, Noah Larson, who actually works in he works as a librarian for a for-profit company. And so I did want to get that perspective as well, because not all business librarians work in an academic library or a public library. There are other opportunities for business librarians, and thankfully we've got Noah here to tell us a little bit about a different type of opportunity. So I want you all to be aware of the various opportunities that you can have in this field. Noah, hold on for 1 second. I'm going to pause this. Hold on for 1 second. All right, sorry about that pause to the audience and to Noah. I just remembered I didn't have headphones on, and so I just stole my daughter's Bluey headphones. They are going to work just fine, but I didn't want you all to pick up that echo. So, yes, we are going to go ahead and get into the interview with Noah, who has been patiently waiting as I do all that spiel. So, the first things first, Noah, if you could just first state your name and your position, and also if you're willing and able, only if you're willing and able, but if you're willing and able to also state what your company does and what industry it's in, that'll probably help as well.
Yeah, so my name is Noah. My position title, I'm a data librarian. So my position actually, I have three job titles depending on who you ask. Within my own team, we're data librarians. If you asked our greater team, we are called glossary administrators or business glossary administrators. And then if you were to ask HR, we're called business analysts. I work for a company called Allstate. They are one of the largest home and auto insurance companies in the country. Um, and obviously, they are a rather large company within the insurance industry as a whole.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And I am actually going to do one more pause here just to make sure I got your audio. I apologize for that, but give me one moment. All right, we are recording again. I was just doing a little bit of a sound check there, and it looks like the audio is good to go. So thank you, Noah, for that. And what does a typical workday look like for you, Noah?
Yes. So before I can really dive into my workday, I kind of need to give some context as to kind of the hierarchy we work in within our company, and also how it differs from a more traditional business librarian. So, for example, traditional or academic public library business librarian, they're typically working like they're going to local chamber of commerces. They're working with embedded businesses within their local community to get library cards, um, boost subscriptions to their databases, etc. Within a large corporation, you're not working with the larger business community. You are working within kind of intra communities within the business. So Allstate has over 50,000 employees. It's a massive company. And what that means is in a librarian who works within that business, you're going to be collaborating with dozens of employees on a given any given week. Um, Now, to give some context to our team and what we do specifically, um, so our team, so we're called the GA team. We consist of three librarians, me, Bonnie, and Gabby. Our main role is to administrate the various business glossaries used by the larger department. I'll get to them in a minute. So, a business glossary is a collection of business specific terms used in a clear language that everyone can understand. Above us is the rate making support decision modeling team. So their role is to build what are called decision models. I'll define those in a second. Uh, Within a third party platform called Sapiens. And then they give those models to product managers to be used at the customer level. So decision models or decision modeling is the process of creating structured and typically visual representations of how the decisions are made within an organization. For insurance, that is incredibly important. An example would be they look like if you've ever made like a genealogy family tree or like a bulletin board with all those sticky notes in the string. That's what a data model or decision model looks like.
Okay.
Yes. So then above that is the rate making support team. They are in charge of developing and maintaining various proprietary databases used by uh, the the whole department, which is the rate making and actuarial services department, and they're in charge of all the rates that Allstate makes. So
Okay.
that's the context of what we're working in on a day-to-day basis. So now what I do on a typical workday includes several things. First and foremost, within the decision modeling process, I'm in charge, or our team is in charge of reviewing and approving all fact types, uh, and this is through what's called a fact type review. Um, After the fact type review within Sapiens, that third party platform, we map and approve the fact types. A fact type is a general classification of a piece of information, aka a subject heading. So on that bulletin board, all those sticky notes with the string, a fact type is like it would be like if the sticky note had a subject heading. That's what a
Okay.
fact type is. Yeah.
Okay.
And we also make sure that the decision model uh, had its business logic works. So business logic refers to the custom rules that handle the exchange of information in a database. Uh, so this is kind of the sticky note itself. So the sticky note would have a subject heading, and in the sticky note would be all the rules, all those business rules that need to be made to have a conclusion.
Okay.
So that's the first thing we do in a day is we have fact type reviews. Second, we are in charge of creating what are called XML elements. So these are like a citation. When you're building a model, you need to justify like the hierarchy of that model, and that's what XML elements do. So on that sticky note, it'd be like if it had a citation. So we have a fact type review, and then we have a larger meeting to actually create these elements. And how we create them is we're really just like looking at like rate plans, we're looking at business terms, we're looking at hundreds of business different types of business documentation to justify that citation that we're making.
Okay.
Um, so, third thing that we can do in our typical day is we facilitate all the business glossaries used by that larger rate making support team. And we answer all glossary related questions. So, we are getting anywhere from oh man, on a really busy day, we can get up to 30 questions a day on like, where do I find this business term? Um, where can I find this XML element for my model? How do I even start building a model? The questions vary. Um, Fourth, we also are often tasked with aiding various managers with improving work processes. Obviously, because we're working with so much data, there's a lot of work processes can get really muddled, and it's
Okay.
our job to make sure that they're efficient and that we meet our deadlines with these models. So we can often be in meetings where we're just telling managers, "Hey, if you want to meet this deadline, you need to do this, 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 and that." And then finally, we work on various long term projects, which I'll answer in the next question. So,
All right, and yeah, that will bring us to that next question, and that is yes, librarians often have to tackle long term projects and do ongoing research. So, yes, are you involved in any long term projects or any lengthy research? Sounds like you are.
yes. So that's just on one given workday. That all the meetings that we have, questions we need to answer. On top of that, uh, we work on right now. I'm pretty sure we're working on 3 long-term projects. So while we're helping business managers improve their own processes, we also, as librarians, it's our duty to make sure that we are improving our own processes, because our community is all the employees within the company. Um, and we are distributing resources to these employees. Um, and one way that we do this is through one of our projects, which is actually we're creating a LibGuide. So if you took
Okay.
Dr. Alston's reference course and got to build a LibGuide, that's a very important project because we are currently doing that. It's not the software that Dr. Alston used. It's through something called SharePoint. It's called a SharePoint library, but it looks exactly like a traditional libguide. And it just contains that's something we're working on now. So it contains like training, it contains business documentation, workflows, etc., etc., etc. Another thing that we're doing, because we're wanting to make sure that we are serving our community, is I'm currently in charge of conducting user feedback interviews. So it's basically I'm interviewing employees to make sure, like, hey, when you're using our glossaries, is your information need being met? um, very simply. And these interviews can take upwards. The longest one I had was 2 hours, and then shortest one I had was like 15 minutes. Um, so, and then finally, we also conduct several data audits. So I think we have 8,000 fact types currently in use. Um, that being said, we always want to make sure that that data is accurate, and when it's used, it won't break a model. So it's very important that we constantly audit what we're generating. So we have a few of those going on as well. So yeah, a lot of long-term projects as well on top of our daily workload. So
That's what makes you a librarian. One of many things, of course, that makes you a librarian. But yes, I don't know any librarians who escape the long-term projects. So, no. All right. My next question for you, and you've kind of already answered this because you mentioned your team, but I want to ask again. So, are you the only librarian for this company? And if not, how many are there? And do y'all collaboratively work as a team?
yes, so Allstate actually has, at least what I was told, 30 librarians company wide. This is in the context of 50,000 employees. Um, but Allstate is a remote company. They actually don't have a company headquarters. But when they did, they used to have like a librarian conference where all of all 30 of those librarians would get together and basically talk about what do you do within Allstate. Um, but since we've switched to remote, we don't do that anymore. So there may be less now. But yes, within my own team, there are 2 other librarians, Bonnie and Gabby. Um, Gabby has her MLIS degree from the University of Pittsburgh, and Bonnie has her degree from the University of Urbana-Champaign. Um, so we definitely work together collaboratively. Our minds click. All 3 of us have very data centric minds. In this type of job, you have to think like an analyst. Hence why we're called business analysts. So we when we run into problems, which is every week, we're always in like a 3-hour meeting talking about, okay, how do we fix this model? What's going on here? Why is the fact type named this way? Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we work collaboratively on a daily basis.
All right, cool, cool. And how was this is always a question that I think is good for librarians to know, especially if they're going a route that's a little less traditional. So yes, how was onboarding handled at this particular job?
Yes. So First, it was handled very well, because I have worked for companies where corporate librarian position where the onboarding was a 1 week process, and
Okay.
okay, get in there. This one was very intensive.
Okay.
I was trained, so I was hired in October of 2024, and I graduated May of 2025. So that was, I think, 7 months of training. Um, yes, and it's because insurance is very just it can get very complicated very quickly,
Okay.
and just data in general can also get super complicated. So you need like um, yeah, that was to me that was like more than or it almost wasn't enough time of training because you're just constantly learning more and more on the job. But my onboarding included presentations. So my first few weeks, I was given presentations like what is a fact type, what is a business glossary, what's a data model, just the basics. And then eventually, once I was there more than a month, I was given I was involved in interactive one-on-one sessions where they would show me like, here's how you approve fact types, here's how you answer reference questions on a daily basis, and when you have your MLIS degree, you everything you learn in that degree is used in this job. So it clicks naturally. It's just in a different environment with different patrons, but all the rules and core principles still apply. Um, and then lastly, we had overall there's like a Word doc that had all my employee goals. So pretty much it was making sure by the end of the training session I met all of those goals, which I did, and now I'm no longer a data librarian in training, so I have the full title now.
Excellent, and congratulations on that, by the way. So
Thank you.
cool. All right. Yeah, I'm glad you provided such a robust answer for that too, because onboarding can also be very well. Quite frankly, I just don't think this field onboards very well. I do think it's in part because of like low low staffing levels and not being able to onboard as
Hmm.
as we should. But either way,
Yeah.
that's the reason I teach the reference class the way I teach it, is because I know that the students are also probably not going to be onboarded very well wherever they go. So like I always have students that are like, yo, you didn't give us like any sort of guidance on that virtual reference practice assignment where we had to pretend to be a reference librarian. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because your
Yeah.
employer is probably also not going to give you that much. So, yeah, so there is a method to my madness. Anyway, all right. This question. Oh, did you have something? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no,
Yeah.
my internet just cut out for a minute. Sorry.
Okay, and now it's saying mine is unstable. Hold on, let me.
Okay.
Okay, all right, and now we're back. Okay, sorry about that. Um, my sixth question here: does your job allow you opportunities for professional development, such as librarian conferences? And do you know if librarians who work for companies typically get professional development and networking opportunities?
Yes. Well, actually, yes and no.
Okay.
So Allstate has a what is it called? They it's like an education fund that you
Okay.
can use to get professional certifications. So next year I will get my certification in data analysis, um, very relevant to this position. Regarding conferences, nothing external. The only professional conference that we went to was a Sapien, or I wasn't there. This was Bonnie and Gabby. They went to a Sapiens conference where they got to show kind of what they did within Sapiens. And that was the only external conference. Regarding Allstate does have a lot of internal conferences though. So like we do meet with other data stewards within our company. Um, and those it is like a virtual conference. There's at least like 100, 200 people within these business calls, but that would be like the only internal networking that we usually do. So nothing external.
Okay, okay. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do want my students to be aware of that as well. I know I talk about networking a lot, but networking can be also within your company or your university or your unit. It doesn't necessarily have to be with other librarians at other libraries that are public or private. I mean, public or academic. All right, let's move on here. And how do you contribute to the professional development of team members?
Yes. So one thing about Allstate is it is a very employee oriented company, meaning in your performance reviews every year, they actually have a section for did you professional development. Basically, did you help your employees develop professionally? Um, and as the GA team, we are very dedicated to helping other employees develop professionally, whether that's by providing training. So we do a lot of training presentations. Once again, the interactive training, um, and we also make sure that that we're always in tune with the professional development needs that employees want from us. And then lastly, so I actually, in my job personally, I actually helped my boss Bonnie with project management. So that was one part of her professional development goals that she wanted to improve upon. And since I have experience in project management, I helped her with that this year. So we're constantly helping with professional development. So
Okay. Excellent, excellent. And that is something I hope you all took note of that because that's something that librarians a lot of times do enjoy. That's a part of the job they enjoy is helping with professional development. So
mhm.
that is wonderful. And you did supply me with a copy of your job description. And I know you've mentioned that glossary term before. I kind of wanted to revisit that. So you noted that you have to collaborate and help with maintenance of some sort of decision glossary. And can you just offer just a few more just details about that?
Yes. So decision glossary is basically it's a Sapiens term. It's a discovery system within Sapiens that houses all the fact types that we work with, those subject headings on the sticky notes. So yeah, it so some of the I'm trying to think which one. It actually looks like one of the discovery systems that you will be using in this class. Um, and I can't remember which one, but it just looks like a traditional library discovery system to like it looks a lot like JSTOR. That's another one
Okay.
that looks like yes.
Okay. Cool, cool. All right. And let me pull up this next question here. Now that you have been through our program, and again, congratulations. Now that you have been through our program, what key librarian skills, as you understand librarian skills, what key librarian skills should someone try to master if they are hoping to get a job like yours?
Yes. And I looked back at the student learning outcomes just to answer this question.
All right.
So the first one is the core principles, aka the information standards that that is like the key skill you need to do well at this job is just understand what are basic standards for information structure. Because you're going to be running into all sorts of problems that really test your knowledge as a librarian of like do you know the core principles at heart. um, so even as like a metadata librarian, do you know that consistency is key? Number one. Do you know that like about metadata standards? Do you know how to research problems and answer those problems, etc.? Um, the second skill that's very important is management principles or interdisciplinary best practices. Very important. You're working with managers on a daily basis, and you're answering a lot of problems that come up in their jobs frequently. And so it's very important to know basic management principles and also know about like best practices behind management. So that course, I think it's 7315, the information
Yes.
management course, very important to this job. Um, and then the third one is the ability to assess community needs. That's why we're doing the user feedback interviews and building our LibGuide, um, is to make sure that we assess our community's needs. And then finally, digital literacy, aka technological skills. We're using on a daily basis, we're using Excel, we're using up to 3, 4 different databases, discovery systems. We're using tons of Teams product or Microsoft products on a daily basis. So having strong digital literacy skills is vital to this job. So
Okay. Okay. Did I? Let me see if I can throw a slight curveball here when you
mhm.
said because you did mention well, you mentioned Excel, which I hate using, but then you also mentioned like uh databases. Are there specific databases, and I probably won't be familiar with them,
Oh,
but are there specific databases that you do use regularly that, yeah, that you
are
can,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, for ours are all proprietary. The one is Sapiens. That's our third party platform, but we use so one we use is called a code management system. This is I won't explain it because it'll go really nitty gritty. It's a
Okay.
lot of IT stuff, but that's one database we use. We we also use like a project planning database. Once again, proprietary. It's just called a project management database. But yeah, I can't give any like external database answers, but yeah, Sapiens is the main one we use every day.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And are there any particular skills or lessons from the business librarianship course that you just took that you believe will be useful in your job going forward? And I hope you say yes, but please give us an honest answer.
Big, big yes.
Okay. Whew.
Those weekly quizzes on learning how to figure out how to utilize some of those discovery systems, um, very important because even outside of this job, just any corporate librarian job, you're going to have to fit. They usually all big corporations have some type of discovery system that employees use, and there's no manual on how to use it, and
Right.
and you have to figure it out on your own. Just like what so Gabby and I, we on Sapiens sometimes we'll spend an hour trying to figure out how do we do this thing. Is this in the manual? No. Oh great. And then we're just literally figuring out like how to search all the different I don't know what they're specifically called, but like categories, stuff like that, how to use it. So yes, that's the most important thing is just learning how to figure out how to use a discovery system. Most important thing in that class you'll learn. So
Excellent. And I wanted them to have that hands-on experience. Yes, so I'm definitely glad that that's the case. Thank you. And what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of working as a librarian for a for-profit entity versus a typical school, college, or public library? So yeah, what are the advantages and disadvantages you feel of working in a role like yours?
yes, the biggest advantage, I'll start with the good stuff, is it's remote work. Business librarian jobs I've found are more open to remote. Not always, but I see them more often than I do public or academic libraries. And number two is the workload varies. So even though my typical day is a lot, um, that's I have a lot of slow days too, where we just we work on our own pace. So sometimes we have a lot of downtime to just chill. And that's the nice part, which in I know in academic libraries sometimes you don't always get that varied workload, especially if you work in a higher position like a metadata librarian. You may,
Right.
so Gabby was a former metadata librarian, and she was
Okay.
swamped at the University of Pittsburgh. In this job, she's not as swamped or constantly swamped as she was there. And then obviously the salary. Business librarians, they are just being very blunt. Business librarians, on average, are paid more than academic librarians. And that's why Bonnie and Gabby, they both worked in academic libraries and they
Okay.
switched over to business librarians because the workload and the salary matched. Um, now, the disadvantages, and I'll be extremely honest here too.
Okay.
You're working with people that don't have their MLIS degree. And that's not to slight people that don't have their MLIS degree. It just means you're working with people that don't understand information structure or best
Okay.
practices.
Right.
And that means there's a one of my friends has a quote for working as like a corporate librarian is it's a career of people not listening to you. So you can see all the problems that an organization has because of what you learned in your degree, and no one cares. They won't listen to you because at the end of the day, if their business strategy excuse me, does not prioritize basic governance needs or information needs, um, why would they listen to you? It's profit over governance, and the reality. So fortunately, there's a team of us, so we can be very effective in what we do, and we have managers that support us. um, you a typical corporate librarian position, you're usually the only librarian within that company, and that means you're the sole preventer of malpractice within the workplace, and that means you're going to have a lot of obstacles in front of you. And that in itself is one of the biggest disadvantages, is working in a workplace that is hostile towards what you just being a librarian, doing what you do best. um, so that's me being very honest. That's the biggest disadvantage of why maybe you wouldn't want to be a corporate librarian. um, so yeah, those are some of the big disadvantages. But in my position, when you work with a team of librarians, which is very rare, you can mitigate a lot of those disadvantages. So
Okay, great. And that is exactly why, actually, I asked about whether you were the only librarian or if you worked as a team, because, yeah, exactly what you said there. So, thank you for that. And what do you find to be the most rewarding part about this job? And also, what do you think is most difficult about this job or most challenging?
yeah, the most rewarding part is just it's the coworkers. Working with Bonnie and Gabby is the best experience. Allstate, because it's an employee-driven environment, it just means that uh, the environment is nice to work in. It's not a toxic work culture. It's actually very supportive. Um, which is rare for companies. Usually they have very competitive environments, which takes away from collaboration. But this environment feels a lot more like an academic library in that sense. And then the development part, that professional development I talked about, Bonnie and Gabby help me all the time with my development, and helping me learn skills that I didn't know. And being able to just put more stuff on my resume in the future. That's the biggest part of it. And then obviously the most difficult is the insurance language. Insurance gets unnecessarily complicated sometimes, and it requires knowing a lot of history of why they're making these business decisions and nuance. And that's the worst part. It gets very overwhelming. We all three of us have had at least like one breakdown in like the past 8 months because of just how overwhelming it can be. It's why we work on a team. And then last part is just we get a lot of work ambushes. So our days are already really busy. And there's just certain time periods when, you get that in, we got to get all these data models out now. And that's a difficult part too, is just managing workloads. So, which librarians you'll have to deal with in your career at some point in time.
True.
So, yeah.
Very true. All right, and the last question I have before I just ask you if there's anything I missed, but the last question that I have for you is, what should someone who wishes to be a librarian for a for-profit company do to make themselves competitive on the job market for that role?
Yes. So the for-profit applications completely different than academic applications. So in an
Okay.
academic library, you're submitting a CV that has everything, uh, or at least has kind of all your greatest achievements. Has whether or not it's specifically relevant to that academic library. Within a business context, your resume needs to be specific to that business. Um, and I guess I have a little list here. I'll just kind of read it off. The first thing businesses are looking for is, unfortunately, they are looking for unicorn candidates, meaning when you read a job description, you kind of have to meet everything on that job description to even get hired. And this is what's different from an academic library is businesses use what are called ATS systems or applicant tracking systems. So it's very important that when you submit a resume to a business, that your resume matches the keywords within that job description. So you're constantly having to convert your resume to the job description. And that's what I did for this position. Was used relevant keywords to the job description so that I would meet that ATS systems keyword count.
Okay.
Um, yes.
Wow.
And the next is experience. Experience in the business world matters. And it's too, unfortunately, like if you're a student that enters this master's program without any experience, you unfortunately are at a disadvantage compared to a lot of applicants that apply for these jobs. So I was up against 600 other applicants, and they all had collectively like, oh, I worked in IT for 15 years, or I worked in this position for 20 years. And that's where you want to make sure, even if you have a little experience, that you make it relevant to the position you're applying for. Um, and then obviously certifications. This is a very IT heavy job. So having like coding certificates, I have one in Python. Um, that's very, very important. And then making sure you're able to market yourself on LinkedIn. I've been contacted by recruiters because I set up my account in a way that looked good to them. You can find YouTube videos that show you how to make a good LinkedIn profile. And you don't have to do very much. It's just making sure it catches their eye. That's it.
Okay.
Um, and then lastly, understanding the job market. It took me, when I was laid off from my previous position, um, it took me about a year to find this one because the
Ooh,
job market, oh yeah, the job market is
yeah.
just very unstable, unstable within the corporate realm.
Okay.
Um, so making sure in between that time I had an unpaid and paid internship, and that helped out tremendously.
Okay.
But yeah, so those are kind of the things that are different from like applying to an academic position that you need to be aware of.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you for that. And yeah, my last question. Every time I do an interview, I always just ask, is there anything else you want to mention? Anything I missed? Anything like that? Floor is yours.
Oh, no, I think I talked about, you could tell there's a lot in this position. So I think that was enough. But no, thank you, Dr. Alston. This was a great experience. So thank you for letting me do this.
Absolutely, and thank you. This is the type of information when when I do these interviews, like when I did them for Kelly and for Steve. This is all about trying to help my students make the best decisions, the right decisions, have a little bit of vocational guidance because they don't always have people that they can talk to themselves, and then also I'm the type of person who will cold call or cold email somebody if I want some information. I do it all the time, but not everybody's like that. So this is a chance for those who might not be as assertive in getting information to have it come to them. So this has been invaluable, and I really appreciate it, Noah. Thank you so much, and let me know if there's anything I can do for you as well. And I am going to, with that said, class, I will see you in the discussions, and I'm going to stop recording now. Take care, class.